Welcome. My name's Sam and this is the Little Greenhouse Creates. Thank you for joining me today and thank you for joining me for Funky Fold Friday. It's the last card of this week's Stamp Set of the Week, Lifetime of Love, and I've got a slight gatefold card. Well, it's not a slight gatefold card, it is a gatefold card, but it's got a little closing mechanism which just slides up and down like so. So what you happen to do is you slide that off and then you can open it up inside. And then the mechanism goes back on and you can stand it. There we go. So that's one version. And I've used old designer series paper for that one. So that was, you can see, is my trial. So it's ideal, this one, for any flower papers you've got. This paper here, I have used Floral Impressions. So it's a new designer series paper that is out at the moment. So I will link that in my card supplies. If you click on the card supplies, it will take you to my shop where all the supplies that we've used today will be there. So let's bring in the actual supplies. Right, so the first thing I've got is a piece of Granny Apple Green, and it's 8 inches by 5 3/4, and we have not scored it. We will do that ourselves in a moment. I have then also got, she says, get off, be attacked. Right, by a piece of designer series paper that measures 6 inches by 6 inches, a piece of white cardstock, which is 3.5 by 5 1/4. I have another piece of white cardstock which measures 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. I have a piece of scrap, and then I have 2 pieces of 1 inch by 2 inches. Okay, and that's going to help us make our mechanism. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the cutting and the scoring. So I will bring in the scoreboard and we will score this piece of paper together. So the first thing we're going to do, I just want to make sure I'm in focus. Yep, we are. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we're going to score it at 2 inches, and then we're going to score it at 6 inches, and that is it. Okay, so that can go away. Perfect. Then we're going to bring in the designer series paper, and we're going to cut that together. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut it with 5.5 inches off the length. So you're going to cut it down to 5.5 from the 6 inches, and you will get this tiny piece left over. Don't throw it away, we're going to use it. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut ourselves one piece at 1 3/4 and then a second piece at 1 3/4. Okay, so they will be the panels for the front of our cards. Put that aside. That leaves us this piece, which is 2.5 inches, and I want 2 of those, so we're going to do 2 squares at 2.5 inches. So that's 1, and then 2.5 again, and that will leave us that piece, which we can throw away. Right, so they are all the things we need to do. So let's pop those over to here. I'm going to grab my piece of scrap paper and I'm going to stamp out 2 flowers. I'm going to use the Memento ink. So I'm going to do 1 and then 2. Okay, perfect. And then we need to colour them. So we are going to use, for this particular card, the 2 Granny Apple Green, dark and light. I have Timid Tiger and Daffodil. No, I don't. This is Darling Duckling. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my dark Timid Tiger, and I'm just going to colour the inside of each of the flowers. Okay, I won't do the other one. Then I'm going to use my dark Darling Duckling, and I'm going to go around and I'm just going to colour in tops of these. I'm happy. And then I'm going to create some shading. And there, down there, a bit of shading there, and a bit down there. Probably colour that bit in as well. A bit up there. And then, oh, should you know, I'm going to colour this bit in as well. Daring today. Right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the rest of the flower with the light version. So I'm just going to just go over. And by going over it like this, I'm blending in the shading as well. So it'll get the light and dark areas on my, oh, excuse me, flower. And then we're going to have the same, excuse me, we're going to have the same philosophy with our green for our leaves. So we'll start with the dark, that's it, and I'm just going to put the shading in the bottom here. There we go. And then bring in the light, and again you'll go all the way over the top. And then once you've done that, you will, yeah, perfect. Once you've done that, we will go over with the dye, and that will sit on the flower like so. There we are. Run that through the cut and emboss machine, and they will come back looking like that. Right, so now we can create the card. So we've done all the bits we need to do. It's all putting the card together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold over both of my strips in towards each other. Okay. And then before I stick my piece in the middle, you remember that really tiny piece? I'm going to pop it along the bottom of our card, like so. So I'm just going to run a tiny bit of glue. I find it's easier to do it this way rather than put the glue on the designer series paper and then put the paper on. For the simple reason, I didn't want it to stick on the side if I went over. So I didn't want it to stick on the paper underneath. So I'm just going to work out, I think I'm going to go a little bit of the strawberry slush. I'm happy with that. Let's just make sure it hasn't peeped yet. So, oops, knock that down a bit. Down. Happy with that. Now I can grab my little pair of scissors, and then I'll just cut that edge off there, and that edge off there. And then they can go in the bin. And then this can be stuck down and put into the middle, or glued up and put into the middle of the card. Once you've got all the pieces, it's quite easy to put the card together. It's quite quick to put the card together. So it's one of those funky folds that once all the pieces are together, you could make quite a few at a time. Right, so what I want to do now is make sure that my DSP carries on, it matches up. So I've got it the right way round, because obviously when the card is closed, it will match up. It's too early on a Friday morning. My brain is just not functioning. Do you ever get days like that? I seem to get weeks like that. Okay, so that one's over the top and stuck down. I've managed to put glue all over my hands. I've got a feeling it's going to be one of those days. And then the next piece. So this designer series paper is the Florals in Bloom. So again, it is from a new paper that's come out with a new catalogue. And I will link the, as I say before, the code for that in my supplies below. Right, let's do this piece. So these two pieces that were 1 and 2 inches each, you're going to fold them in half and burnish them with a bone folder. goes like that. And then you're going to do the same on this one. Now, when you put these down, you need to make sure that there's an opening to the left and an opening to the right. So out of your 2 pieces of square paper, I'm going to use this one as the bottom, turn it over, and I'm going to aim to have my left piece as central as possible. So the opening is facing towards the left and the crease is in the middle of the square. Now obviously you don't have to use square, you could use a circle or whatever shape you want, as long as it disguises the mechanism that's underneath. And then I'm going to do exactly the same with the other piece, again making sure that the opening is off to the right. Whoops. And then that sticks down to there. Okay, when you're happy with that, you're going to put your glue on the top of these 2 pieces, bring in your final square, and then that literally will go over the top. You probably need to squiggle it around a bit so that it lines up. And when you're happy with its position, you can then squeeze down for the glue to stick. And that is as simple as it gets for the mechanism for the middle of the card. Your white piece will go onto the middle of your paper. Okay, now before you do that, you want to put your sentiment on. So I've got the flowers. I need to work out roughly where my flowers are going to go. So I think they're going to go about there. Now I have taken a small happy birthday that I've got from a very old stamp set called Days to Remember. Obviously you can use whatever's in your stash. The sentiments that came with this particular stamp set are too big for this project. So I think I might put it in the middle there. So I'm going to ink that up in Memento. Again, work out roughly where this is going to go in the middle. Pop it down, hold it for a couple of seconds, and then bring it back up. I'm not going to pop the flowers down just yet. What I want to do is attach the white paper to the back or to the front of the squares, like so. That will go down into place. And then I'm going to pop dimensionals on the back of these. One on that one, and I'll probably put 2 on this one. 1, 2. Take those off the back. That will fit just there. And then we'll do the same on the top. And that will fit just there. Bring my card in. I'm going to... My heart stopped then. I thought I'd got the mechanism the wrong way around, but I did. It was fine. Panic was over. There we are. So there we are. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to push that down, and this might push out your ending. That's fine. Just burnish it with a bone folder. Let it be where it needs to be. Push it down, because then it helps it to stand upright, she says. There we go. My paper is a little bit wonky today, and I don't know why. There we go. Stand upright, and then it allows your mechanism to work. So you just move it up and down. All right. Now, if you wanted to, you could add a bit of bling. So I have got my 2025 to 2027 flat pearls. And one of the colours here is Strawberry Slush. So I'm going to put one down here. And I'm going to put 2 little ones at the top. One there. And one there. And that is our card, our Funky Fold. comes together quite quickly, really, as I said, once you've got all the pieces. So thank you ever so much for joining me today. I hope you like that card. I was going to bring in the others. Yes, I can. There are the other two for you. So this is using all the 3 flowers that come in the stamp set. So I hope you like those, and you hope you like the stamp sets and the card for this week. Do join me next week when there will be a new stamp set of the week. So thanks ever so much for joining me today. And whatever you do, have a happy weekend. I look forward to catching up with you soon. Bye.